What's up, everybody, and welcome to another fantastic episode of E-Commerce Masters. I'm your host, Ethan Giffen, CEO and founder of Groove Commerce, and I'm excited to be here today with an amazing guest to talk about all things NetSuite. Colin Booth is our guest today. He is managing partner of Esonis. They are a NetSuite implementation firm that focuses in the e-commerce space. Wonderful to have you here today. I'm excited to talk about ERP. It looks like you got some Star Wars posters in the back. We could talk about Star Wars and all those kind of cool things. So super excited to have you here today. Welcome to the show, Colin.
Thank you. I enjoy being called amazing. So thanks for that. And yeah, maybe we'll figure out what the intersection of e-commerce, Star Wars, and ERP is. But if we don't, we can do that next time.
There has to be one. I will tell you there has to be a way that we can work this into Star Wars.
Well, so like this one right here, that's a Doom poster, original Doom, and I saw a post, a guy got the original Doom to run in NetSuite. Actually, I don't know. I want to try it, but so there you go. So maybe like a Star Wars Rebels game, one of the old games, we can figure out how to get it running in your ERP or something like that.
An Easter egg.
Yeah.
An Easter egg. So welcome to the show today. So tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, a little bit about your background, and how did you get into NetSuite?
Yeah. So my formal education was in mechanical engineering, and I dropped out of school, as all successful people do, right? And on that journey, I joined my dad was recruited to build a product, and it was a NetSuite specific product dealing with e-commerce. It was kind of the Wild West days of ERPs and integrations. So he brought me on the team, and I worked with it in the development capacity, software engineering, building in this integration platform. And we kind of flip-flopped that IP, and as we were talking about earlier, once we exited that, it was like, oh, we need jobs, we need something to do. And just constantly getting asked about the platform and how to do X and how to do Y and how to do Z. So I really didn't start the normal way as I would say as a consultant. Usually begin, very technical backgrounds. And that just kind of snowballed. It was good timing. That was right around the acquisition of NetSuite by Oracle. So it really kind of snowballed and kind of fell into it. I don't think very many people, wake up and want to be a accounting platform consultant. My wife tells me, she's like, your job sounds, I was just like, I'm sorry, I'm sure it's not. She's like, your job sounds so boring. I'm like, yeah, it is on paper. Like, I get it. It's not sexy, but it's really fun. It's very complicated. I think that's what keeps my interest in it. It's very complex, lots of problem solving, for e-commerce businesses, for manufacturers, because it's cool nowadays. These businesses have tools that we work with, tools that you work with. They can get really complex. Businesses have that ability now, so they need people to support those things.
Yeah, I think that's great. And I really think, in kind of knowing you, knowing what you're posting on LinkedIn and what you're thinking about, like, I get a total vibe from you that you enjoy the problem solving aspect of this business, right? Of helping businesses get through challenging issues with like unique solutions, right? I think I feel kind of the same way, like with that. My wife asked me, she goes, what are you going to do, after Groove? And I said, I think I'm going to be like one of those EOS consultants or a business consultant where I kind of work my own schedule and have a half dozen clients and literally help and coach them like get over business challenges. Cause that's like my favorite thing to kind of do. And it doesn't feel like work. If I have to like fill out paperwork, then it's work. If it's conversations and what I call bullshitting, then it's to me, I love it.
Solutioning through bullshitting, right? That's like, that's my top talent. No, it's it's like, I think for a longest time, you couldn't, business was probably more simplified before all these apps started to just get piled in. Now you look at like an e-commerce company, like one of the funny things I like to tell people is everybody can be a SaaS company nowadays.
Right.
Everyone can, right? Like premium shopping subscription, that's SaaS. I mean, it's just funny to say, but like it's actually achievable. Like I'm half joking, but I'm half not. And that's because you've got all these tools at your disposal. The average number of apps for a company right now, I'm sure is everyone's doing it, touching at least 10 applications at a minimum.
At least.
And if
At
you're
least.
not, then you should call me or Ethan and figure out why you're not, because I would say at least you should be looking at that number.
The one of my common like catchphrases is Jaffa, just another fucking app,
Yeah.
right?
Oh
Like,
yeah.
and I don't need my stapler or my label printer to have a subscription, right? I just don't need, or I don't need my TV to have, like the TV device, not the
Oh,
channels, of course, but I don't need it to have a subscription
like
for.
when you leave your
Um,
TV on and it goes on to like the screensaver thing, and like I have the Roku TV sticks, and like the ads come across the screen. I'm like, God damn it! Like it's everywhere now. It's
yeah.
crazy,
Don't get me started on that. I've got a 7-year old, and no matter how hard
Oh,
you block things on Roku, like he can always find
you can
the
figure, yeah,
Minecraft channels and goofy YouTubers that I don't want him to
yeah,
necessarily
yeah.
be be watching. So tell me a little bit about Esonus and what you do. Who's your ICP? What's your ideal customer look like? And then how does that let's start with that.
Yeah, so for us, it's we have a lot of tribal knowledge with two industries to say, well, three e-commerce companies. NetSuite has been a very popular choice for them, particularly if you have multiple sales channels in your e-commerce business. It kind of brings this ability to manage that under one roof, 3PLs and all these things you can add. And then kind of piggybacking on that is the B2B, the wholesale businesses. Um, ERPs are pretty vital for those kind of businesses because you need single sources of truth to run that business. And so we've learned a lot and worked well with those companies. And the third are manufacturers. And then I bring them up because we try to encourage our manufacturers to think more and behave more like e-commerce and wholesaling businesses too, right? Because you're making product. Why not sell it? I try to tell them if you're going to make products, you can sell your product on Amazon. Like you can have that ready and overnight if you know what you're doing,
Right.
and you can have an e-commerce site and you can have a wholesale site. I see you post all the time about that method, and it's just number of sales channels should equal more sales, right? And better operations and better systems should equal more profitability of that. And so those are the businesses that we like to focus on, just because I understand their pain. I kind of understand what they do, um, even though I've never worked at any. Well, I've worked at an e-commerce place. I'll take that back, but I've not worked at any of these. So I've been on the dark side my whole life. Full disclosure, dark side consulting. I call it the dark side. My whole life has been in that space.
Any particular revenue range that's a best fit for you?
You know, the mid market, which I classify between 10 to 500 million. I know 500 million is kind of pushing it, but I really feel like you're still mid market at
Yeah.
that point. And it really, to me, that just means you have trajectory for growth in that range, right? Like on the higher end, you're looking at IPO, selling, whatever it is. On the lower end, you're just looking to grow. And so we try to give you the operational ability to grow. And that's my goal as a ERP NetSuite consultant is, tell me what you're doing, and we'll figure out how to actually do it, right? With an app involved, you know.
So, so intersecting, and I've got lots of questions. But intersecting with e-commerce is that you guys have an integration tool that helps you connect with a handful of e-commerce platforms. Do I have that correct?
We have a tool that we'll use, and we like to right size that approach, right? Because it's a somewhat time consuming and a little bit of a costly venture. But we like to right size it. You know, are you doing enterprise volume that drives what tool we use, or are you doing lots of volume through many channels? We'll push you to a different tool to manage that. And then, there's more questions you go through to figure out what to do. Like, are you going to manage it, or do you want me to manage it? Right. That'll change the approach too, because everybody's system now has, hopefully, has a developed API, and then there's a dime a dozen what they're calling, iPaaS services for like Celigo, Boomi, Workato, MuleSoft, these integration products, and they have an upside, and sometimes they have a downside. And so you just need to make a informed qualification and choice on what you're going to do.
I tend to think, there's kind of just some steps or some lanes for these manufacturing and B2B businesses, right? Like if you're kind of 10 to 25 million, 10 to 30 million, like you might be leveraging e-commerce for direct
Mm-hmm.
to consumer, but
Mm-hmm.
your B2B aspect of that might just be wholesaling, right? You may have just added some customer groups into your existing B2C site so that those customers can log in. Maybe they get wholesale pricing, maybe they get a set amount off MSRP or something like that when they log in. Then as they're kind of getting, on their way to 50 million, many of those folks are starting to think about like kind of segmented, like
Yeah.
password protected, account holder only, must be approved, like buyer portals that are like more B2B, not just wholesaling, but real B2B, like, and then starting to even like get into EDI and different
Yeah.
interconnection like that. And so what are you seeing in the marketplace with the people you're working with in terms of how they're approaching connecting their NetSuite to these different sources?
Yeah. The first thing I see is I'm a little surprised at how few companies are having a buyer's portal at any degree. Even a really simple buyer's portal. Um, I think that you worry about disrupting traditional sales by doing something like that. But for me, it's like if you're running an ERP, right? If you're running NetSuite, you have a wealth of data, and it's open. You can take this data, whatever it is you choose you want to show, and you could put it somewhere so that now that customer or that buyer can see that, right? Even if they can't transact in that portal. Let's just take, for example, it's the most simple thing. You could present your available to sell quantities of what you sell to that customer, so they can go and go, oh, these guys got 10 of what I need today. I want to call my rep and order it. Now you've just made that process go how many steps, right? Phone call. Oh, I don't know. Let me go look up the inventory. I'll call you back. Think about the number of steps that you can cut out. And then you take that concept and you can evolve it over time as you grow and say, look, we want people to order right out of this portal, man. Like, builds a PO for you, triggers your work order, allocates your inventory, and you start to look at the downstream automation of doing something like that. That's what having an ERP and a buying portal and a marketing tool all kind of working in sync. I call it the business tech stack. If it's not highly integrated, you really need to consider getting it all highly integrated, because that downstream effect just means higher profitability, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And it's funny because There was this, article that came out 10 years or so ago about kind of death of a B2B salesman, right?
Yeah.
Like it's, and like that didn't come quite to fruition. But at the end of the day, the concepts are interesting in the fact that, I've been working with a prospect for the last 90 days or so, and he's like, listen, we were acquired. Our parent company thinks we have too many salespeople compared to
Yeah.
how they, how they like look at revenue across the whole portfolio. And so, there's multiple ways to kind of peel this back. Like the first is, I think, when you approach a buyer portal, I do think that you've got to talk to the chief revenue officer, the VP of sales. You got to have the VP of operations dialed in. You've got to have the VP or director of marketing dialed in. You got to have the CFO 100% dialed into this thing. And, from there, but I really believe as younger generations are getting into the workforce,
Yeah.
they don't want to interact with salespeople. They want to do their own research. They want to be able to place an order at
Yeah.
midnight on a Sunday night, or at 6 a.m. and not have to talk to anybody. And so I think the salespeople really just need to be, there to provide knowledge
Yeah.
and help in decision making, and for very customized things, right? Like you don't want, because somebody could go customize a product that just like doesn't even work, right?
Yeah.
Like, and so you don't want people doing that either. But I think that like you need to figure out how to empower your sales team to leverage these products to help them like manage and grow their books of business.
Yeah. I
And
mean,
I think if you do that, you like that's where people want to go with this.
yeah, it's like everyone talks about AI is coming from your job and all that stuff. I mean, like whatever. I mean, if you say that, you obviously haven't used it enough to know that that's not even close to being true right now. But you can take that use case, and the one thing I tell people is you're going to start investing in apps, ERPs, e-commerce sites, EDI tools, whatever. I would say 90% of the time when people say, the implementation of this or that project we did with this was a failure, 90% of the time, all that means is we failed to adopt the solution that was given to us. I mean, you can't reasonably tell me that a product that has 50,000 customers doesn't work for your business, right? That's just, being on the dark side and being real about it. You need to figure out, okay, what do you want to do? And then this next step is, how are you going to get everybody on board and using this and changing the process that they used to have to, convert it to this new thing. And like you said, it's like a sales enhancement, right? So you go to your salespeople and say, hey, you're going to use this and you're going to get more sales. Because if your customer that you worked with, you're talking to them and you went golfing, and then after the rounds, your guy logged in and bought $100,000 of products. It's like high five. You just get your commission, whatever it is, right? You need to have that mentality. And I think you're right. I think old school business leadership probably has more resistance, and it's natural to resist things you don't understand, things that you're not used to. And I think newer, generation business ownership is like, for me today, I'd be SaaS app central if I'm running one of these businesses. I mean, everything's going to be running through an app. Human action is all going to be tracked. It's all data. That's all going to become a corporate asset, and data that I can use to figure out what we need to be doing, right? Ultimately, when you look at it, you can boil it all down to like, it's all going to be rich data to help you do your job better.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny. I talk about there's three things that kind of kill these projects, right? The first is poor catalog data. And we're going to come back to that because I know you've got some thoughts and feelings about bad product catalogs. The second is bad ERP connection. Somebody didn't sit down and thoughtfully think about all the flows that need to happen, like in bidirectionally, how that flows back and forth between all the systems. And the third is really kind of adoption. of the system, or kind of lack of adoption overall, whether that be lack of internal adoption
Yeah.
or lack of getting your customers to adopt it. But if you get 1 and 2 wrong, like you never even get to 3, right?
Yeah.
And so, we're finding that, many of the people that we work with on the manufacturing and distribution side that have never gone down this path before of either D2C or B2B, the catalogs are filled with internal speak, acronyms that don't make sense,
Yeah.
and like lack of information and specifications at
Yeah.
times, meaning sometimes you'll go to Amazon and they'll have all the length,
Yeah.
width, like weight,
And
like all of those specs, and the manufacturer doesn't even have
and
those
it's
documented
formatted,
somewhere.
but yeah. And if you're trying to sell on Amazon, like maybe it's not even formatted the way they table it out correctly. There's some pieces that you have to overcome for sure.
But once you get that catalog right and ready for human consumption, and I even there's AI ways to kind of dig into that and help you along. But once you get the catalog right, and once you get the ERP connection right, like you can move that data to any marketplace. And like I think we've seen instances where manufacturers and distributors are surprised that alternative industries have needs for their products and start to
Yeah.
buy it, or
Yep.
they'll pump it into Amazon, and next thing you know, they're selling $3, $4, $5 million a year through Amazon of stuff they didn't expect to
Yeah.
sell, kind of thing.
Yeah. I mean, everyone should be like, you look at the current economic landscape, look at the cost to sell something on Amazon. What is the cost opportunity to not be selling on an Amazon, right? And like one of our manufacturers, they make concrete products, additive products, and their COO was like, "Hey, our concrete cleaner is excellent. It's like a really good product," and they just bought spray bottles and started filling the spray bottles, and that's the only, that's what they started. That was the only thing they started selling on Amazon, and it did really well. Like, so what's the opportunity cost to not do that? And you wouldn't be able to do that unless you had taken the time to invest the ability to run your manufacturing process, right? Because they make the stuff and then build a new item and say, hey, it's the 12-ounce spray bottle, and track all the costs and do that. If you don't have a system in place to do that, and then not only just to do it, the financials and logistics of it, but then track, hey, I'm going to allocate inventory for this product now to Amazon. And then I want to see the sales of that come back into my ERP. And then I'm going to push that into my data warehouse. And, now the data warehouse is going to look at that and go, hey, this is a really good piece. And now you can make an informed decision. Well, let's sell something else on Amazon. Let's focus on Amazon, or it sucked. Let's not do it anymore. Let's focus on
Right.
D2C or B2B selling. But you can't do that unless you, like you said, number one, you got to have the platform, just the ability to do it. You got to figure out how to do it well. And it's not rocket science to do it well. I think it's more experience driven and best practice. When you combine the two together, it's highly achievable. I mean, we've made disgustingly complicated integrations. I mean, just out of this world requirements that are 20 pages long, nuance to all get out. Logistics companies, you guys are the worst. I'll say that. They have the worst requirements. But they're just so complicated, right? But you get in, you get this solved, and now not only are you doing something new, you have a new sales channel. Hopefully you have a highly automated sales channel, and you can be this highly automated omni-channel selling business. And if you're a $50 million company, that's massive. If you can allocate inventory to a 3PL and that it just works, that's huge. You don't have to hire 2 more people to manage
Right.
that. Where
Or you do fulfilled by, if you have enough margin, you do fulfilled by Amazon and just
fulfilled
ship
by
them pallets of
Amazon,
stuff and just be done with it. And, like maybe you make some money at least to cover overhead or, drive additional product innovation or just, kind of give you that little addition,
yeah,
just to, and then I think I do think like B2B buy, I think B2C buying can influence B2B buying and B2B
mhm,
buying can influence B2C buying. Like in terms of if I have a product that I like to clean concrete, right? Like maybe I say, hey, maybe let's get this for the office and we start buying it by the case.
yep,
And instead of paying, I was with another distributor and they were, selling a product for $8.50 on Amazon Prime, that, when you buy it by the case, it's $2.50.
yeah,
And so that's the other crazy thing as well is that people will pay for, just the immediate, the Prime 2-day delivery. And in some
yeah,
cases it's same day or next day, especially if you live near, like we're in Baltimore and like almost everything is
yeah.
same day or next day, with that. And that kind of
Damn.
leads me into that your B2B buyers are also using Amazon
Yes.
like in their personal lives. And so, we get a lot of, we get people that just aren't thinking about how to activate these portals the way that direct to consumer brands do. And while it's
Yeah.
not the same, and I would tell you, don't think about it the same, there are parallels. You should have abandoned cart. You should have post purchase follow up. I think B2B should have ratings and reviews.
Oh
I
yeah.
think B2B should have loyalty. Now, maybe they can't turn those points in for free stuff or a free product or whatever, but maybe the company gets those back as a rebate, at the
Yeah.
end of the year, right? I think there's a lot of different ways like to go about this. And, I think we've barely touched the surface of what's out there in
I think at
terms
a
of,
minimum, like Amazon kind of ruins everybody's life that tries to sell in B2B because you get this peek into, well, how convenient it can be at scale. Like it's mind blowing, right? Now, you don't need to be that sophisticated, right? But I always joke, like, offer a service and offer this maybe a B2B selling portal, but just make damn sure that your service is not more, less convenient than traditional methods. I hate trying to book like a service at my house. I won't use you unless you have an online thing. I can go book it, pick the time, date. Like that's
yeah,
one of my policies. I don't give a crap if I pay $100 more. I don't want to call you on the phone. I don't want to do that. Like that service is worth the premium. So, you know, that's number one. You got to make sure that it's convenient and it's enhancing their buying experience. And just pick the things you want to enhance. Like I said earlier, like you could just show them inventory levels. If I can go see inventory levels, that means you're gonna have a chance to sell something, right?
yeah,
Where
that's
where
cool.
traditionally you
Yeah.
didn't, right?
That's cool, and I'm the same way, by the way, with appointment booking and
Oh
all of
yeah.
that. I when I first started Groove, like in the first couple of years, I had somebody had referred an HVAC guy to come to my house to fix my HVAC, and he came over and he's like, "Oh, it's just me." He's like, "I just left my job." He's like, "Actually, I got fired." Because I was doing some side work, and so I got fired. I started my business. I've got one truck. I've got a couple ladders, and he was a friend of a friend, so we just sat there and we actually had a beer afterwards, and he's like, "Oh, I just don't know how to like organize this. I need helpers. I need this," and I actually I had the E Myth book on the shelf, and I gave it to him. I said, "Here, take this and read this,"
Yeah.
and he was like, "That's one of the most impactful things I've read to build systems and things," and now he has. Like you don't even talk to a person. You go online and you book your HVAC
It's
appointments, and
amazing.
he's got a subscription club and all these things. It's just like you've got to think about and innovate with your business, because again, I'm 50 years old and I don't want to talk to anybody like on the phone.
No. No, and yes, and like we said, there's the generational shift towards that, right? If I'm running a business that needs to buy supplies, man, if I can log in and buy my supplies, um, even better. Okay, let's level it up. You have an API that you can develop and host, and I can get access to that. And now my system can let's go crazy, right? Let's go crazy. Let's get real nerd talk. Okay, you have an ERP, you have a demand plan that runs in a supply plan, so you know what your forecast for something is going to be. And let's say that item is a kit component item, right? And part of that is stuff that you procure from someone else. Now imagine if that company that you buy stuff from had an API that I could have my ERP run and go, well, I'm going to need to order some stuff from Ethan's bottles, right? Ethan's beer company.
Oh yeah.
The ERP could build that up, go hit that API and get that order done and get the status back of that order and get a promised delivery date and the PO number and this. I mean, just imagine if you did that for one of your clients, or imagine that your business, you could do something like that. Now you're, workbench manager guy, you're a guy that's running an MRP all day. He just knows that his shit's going to show up and the system's going to look at it and do it. Now we're cooking. That's absolute gas right there. And that's something that is possible, right? I mean, that's totally possible. It'd be cool.
That's very cool, and I think that that's what people should be striving for. I think there's a crawl, walk, run to everything, but I see that as like really running, and like people that have adopted digital, like digital first are really, that are in second, third, fourth generation of that, are really like starting to move along and pull apart from the pack. What's your suggestion? Like, how do you handle folks that have bad catalogs to start with? How do you kind of work them through that process to get it ready for NetSuite?
Yeah, that project really sucked 2 years ago because it's human interaction and that product catalog could have been really big. Now we have tools at our disposal, and you're starting to see, like, look at NetSuite. They have some embedded AI enhancements. So you could do one of two things, and you could take it all in as it is, and then you could iterate that catalog and use these embedded tools, or maybe an external tool to refine that product catalog. And really what you're looking, my term for AI apps and AI automation right now is you treat it kind of like the high-speed idiot. Don't let it make critical decisions for you, but let it do things that you would think a high-speed idiot would be really good at doing. Rewriting a product description is really good to let the high-speed idiot go through first, give you the first version of that, and then go tweak it and reiterate it, right? And make it better, and boil it down. That would kind of be your first option. The second one that I'd probably push you more towards is do that before you put it in. If you're savvy, you could spin up your own GPT. You could throw up your own model, and you could run all this stuff through and clean that all up and then upload it. And that would bear like little cost. I mean, you could almost do it for free. I think you could probably manage to do that for free. And then you just go review stuff that has already had a once over. And then the beautiful thing is you do one, and then feed the app or the tool, the AI powered tool, give it that feedback of what you changed on that one, and let it do it for the rest. And do that like 5 times, and you'll be shocked. It'll come out probably 90% baked, and so you can do that with any data migration style projects, from into any app, into an ERP, into an e-commerce. We love how Shopify kind of box you in on how to do product listings and all this stuff, but you can go find, I'm sure there's a dime a dozen now AI powered apps that can help you figure that out. And if you got 10,000 products, it'll do it like pretty damn fast. So 3 years ago, you had to pay an army of people to sit there and do that and dredge through it for weeks. Now I can do it in 2 days. It was pretty freaking cool.
Yeah, figuring out the right amount of batches to send through at one time. But you know, AI can read, CAD files, like
Yeah.
PDF spec sheets, like, and we're really seeing that like evolve fast on the
Yes.
front end search side. Like
Yep.
tools like Hawk Search are, like ingest everything now about the product, which is like really fascinating versus what just the description is. And so, figuring out how to feed a half dozen products to create that kind of what you think is your holy grail of this, and then wash, rinse, and repeat around
Yeah.
that. There's definitely a path to that, that that people can do to help
And,
there.
and then when you have that, now, yeah, you talked about the crawl, walk, run. Now think about the walk. Now you can use embedded AI tools and say, hey, if a customer is looking at this product, what should I put in the suggested products pop up
Right.
now? Because before that had to be, like you had to have a technical, if it's a technical product, the technical person had to piece that together. But imagine if you have a big product catalog and you can let an AI based tool give you those suggestions. Even if it's static, maybe it could even be dynamically driven. That's just like, now we're walking, and then if they're buying stuff, now you're running, right? I mean, that's just like where you can go with it. And that's, like I said earlier, now you're taking a service and you're doing the basics, but you're making it even more convenient to buy something and easier, right? That's the
Yeah.
ultimate goal here.
I saw on LinkedIn a friend had posted a story of one of his employees had fed a service manual for their HVAC unit into AI, and then they had replaced their control board. Right, they had determined that the control board was done. The control board's got about 6 wires, a couple of harnesses, like pretty straightforward for somebody that knows how to use a
Yeah.
screwdriver, like to go in and swap yourself. You pay $200 for the board instead of 2,000 for a company to come do it. And so it didn't work when he went to turn it back on, and he fed the service manual that he got online in and took a picture of the board with the wiring on it, and it came back and told him what he had done wrong. And
Yeah. I
so,
mean,
like, actually put a red box around the wire that was in the wrong place. And so, like, we're seeing an evolution of AI based tools happen faster, faster, faster than anything else I've seen, like, in my 20 years of doing commerce. And
it,
so it's gonna, like, just continue to, like rock and roll.
yeah. And I would say, look, you don't need to be AI adopted today, right? Um, but you need to have you need two things. You need applications that are going to have AI enablements. And if you're shopping for an app, an ERP, an e-commerce platform, whatever it is, you need to put the qualifier in your brain that they need to show you that they have a clear roadmap to either they're working on or they will be adopting AI based solutions in that app. Otherwise, it's a non-starter for me. And then the second part is you need these apps, you need an ERP, you need a data warehouse, and you're like, well, why? But because the new wave of AI based applications that'll come in and make it easier for you to run your business are going to need data.
Need it.
they're
Yeah.
they're gonna that's the fuel, and you need that data to do it. And the more data you have, the more rich and the more return you're gonna get with these next generation of these apps coming in. um ChatGPT is my new Google, man. I mean, I haven't stepped into
Yeah.
Google for months at this point because it's so much better. And I like to think that, all the bullshit that I put in there is costing this company like a lot of money right now. I kind of think that's funny. You hit the deep research button, that like they lose money on every prompt you put in through deep research by $200 a month subscription. I think that's hilarious, by the way, but it's yeah, it's a good time.
I've got like my two kind of favorite AI things that like, that have affected me recently is, the first is I like putting, we record all of our calls, right? We
Hmm.
got a tool called Fathom that records all of our calls and outputs the transcript. And so what I'll do is I'll take the calls or just even like the discovery call that we do and say, I'm a big believer in empathy. So what are the fears, frustrations, wants, and aspirations
Yeah.
that the prospect expressed on this call? And you'll get this list back. Okay. And then I've been taking that and saying, here's our recommendations presentation, and here's the empathy map of them. What am I missing?
Yeah.
Okay. And I am like always surprised of something that I've missed. I'll even upload full transcripts of calls and say, what have I missed in this presentation or SOW that the client's going to think is important? And,
Yeah.
to me, that's just been game changing, right? Because there are times at sales that it's like we've lost, and I'm like, why did we lose?
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, I bet we missed something. You have all these conversations like, doing a project like when we do a project, it can take 90 or 120 days in the sales cycle. And you have a lot of conversations, right? And you might forget one thing that they thought was the most important, or you may not realize it was the most important. And so that's been pretty game changing. And the other is that a recent prospect of ours took their requirements document, right? They kind of wrote a mini RFP. I hate RFPs, by the way. Please don't send me any. And so they had written up their requirements for a project, and they uploaded it into ChatGPT and say, give me a list of commerce agencies that you think might be a good fit for this project.
Yeah.
And it's a $500,000 project, right? It's like, and our name got spit out in the list. And he's like, I'd never heard of you guys. And he's like, oh, I really love the conversation we're having, right? And so,
Yeah.
it's just people talk about SEO being dead, okay, and I call that bullshit because SEO has just changed. I've been
Yeah.
in
I was gonna
SEO since
say.
1999. Like it's changed right now. It's not just Google. It's YouTube and ChatGPT are where you want to be found, or it's Amazon, right?
Yeah.
Like that's the new SEO.
It's like platform based SEO now, right? I mean, it's
Yeah,
like that'll be a whole new industry, right? Like build your website and make it optimized for AI based search. Like
yeah,
because SEO had its own trick and it was all based on Google and how Google ranks and does all that stuff. Now it's going to be like, what are the tricks to make sure ChatGPT wants to spit you out as the best e-commerce agency possible? Can you do something to, you are the best, you're not tricking it, but show put you on that list. I mean, that's going to be a whole new
yeah.
wild industry. But yeah, it's cool. If you look at you could make that product and we could call it C3PO because that's what he did, right? He was inter interhuman relations and
Yeah.
communications, right? That was his thing.
Cyborg, yeah.
So there we
Yeah.
go. Look, we're intersecting. I told you we would.
Yeah,
Um,
we did it. We
so we
got there. We got
C3PO
there.
could C3PO, that'll be his job. Translate your website and give you good results based on who's going to be the best service provider, right?
Yep. So let me ask you a couple NetSuite specific questions to kind of like move in a different direction. What is that if a manufacturer comes to you and and says, hey, we're a $25 million manufacturer, we're on QuickBooks, we're a family based business. Cousin
Yeah.
Bob manages the catalog. Uncle Joe is the head of sales. Like they've got stuff in file cabinets and notepads, and they want to get over to NetSuite. What's that process like? How long does that take?
Yeah. It's a great question. So the process would be, you would want to go out and formally evaluate what are your options to do this. Now, obviously I have a big bias to NetSuite. So you can choose an ERP like NetSuite, or you could choose a collection of systems. and not have an ERP. Now, the big advantage to an ERP like NetSuite is it is the it's the jack of all and it's the master of some, right? I'll say that to be fair. It can do every functional operational component that you would wish is not happening on file cabinets and shared folders and Google Drives and whatever else you might think. It'll put it all in the same house. Now you do need to be ready to kind of adopt some of the ways that they want that done, and that's okay. You just kind of a little bit of a process change.
Meaning you need to be willing, and this is important because I think a lot of people screw this up. You need to be willing to change or alter or adjust. I'm going to use a bunch of different words there that all mean the same thing.
Right? Moldable.
Like you need to adjust your process to fit within NetSuite as best it can, and still get done what needs to happen versus going in guns blazing and say, I've got to customize NetSuite to meet exactly what I do now.
You absolutely need to do it at that level, at that $25 million. Yes, you 100% need to do that. And that's projects should take you 6 to 9 months. If anyone tells you it's going to take longer, that's taken too long. You're signing up for a big injection. You need to be moldable. And I would say you need to put on your list, what are the things we absolutely operationally need to get done in that time frame, and then you need to phase everything else out beyond that. Don't take on everything at once. It'll be too much. It's too big of an emotional journey for you and your business to try to do everything at once. Just say, what is the MVP, baby? Right? Minimum viability. That's not a negative term. Okay. That's a positive. That's an absolute positive. What are the least number of things you need to do to make this a viable solution for your business?
I love that, because one of the things that I stress to people is that it's much easier to configure than customize. And so at the end of the day, everything that you customize to the nth degree is going to be expensive to maintain and take you one step back when it's time to upgrade, right? And all these systems upgrade every couple cycles, every few years in terms of, how they move. And so configuring versus customizing is going to be just a much better way to go. And save that for really important stuff, not just because Aunt Barbara, in accounts payable, is used to doing it this way for the last 50 years. Right. And I hate to say it like that, but this is the stuff that you sometimes
that's what you come across. Right. But that's why I said, adopt MVP. And then once you have that, then someone like me or your consultants or the people in the house can start to figure out what is configure versus customize, right? You might have some actual nuance, what is the secret sauce that we need to come in and build and customize for your business? That's going to have the highest ROI for a customization, right? But hey, the way that expense costing happens, you don't need to reinvent that wheel. Just accept whatever NetSuite tells you and how it goes and work with it. Don't spend $50,000 doing your own expense costing unless that's the secret sauce to your business, right? If it is, I'll accept it. But I say no.
Rarely is it. Rarely is it.
I say no all the time. People come, they're like, hey, we want to do this cool thing, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, no. And they're like, you think, the dark side consultant would just be like, yeah, okay, sweet, $100,000 project, I'm in. And I'm like, no, there's an app for that, guys. Let's just go get it and use it. And that's surprising, but I've developed products. I know the pitfalls of extensive customization, but that's one of the things we try to bring to the table is we can do anything. We can do crazy stuff. I was telling you, we can do nasty integrations. But we'll really make sure that that's going to be the thing we need to do. Yeah. We'll bring an enterprise solution to you, but I'm not going to bring an enterprise solution to you unless you have an enterprise budget and an enterprise need. That's just me.
I mean, product development, R&D, That's the secret sauce. Accounting is not the secret sauce. Sales is not the secret sauce. Fulfillment, pick, pack, ship, is not the secret sauce. The warehouse is not the secret sauce, right? And so the more we can streamline those operations, the more you actually can put time into R&D. The more sales we can then generate by streamlining this, the more resources you're going to have for the important stuff.
And that's what I try to tell people is they you kind of gag at the price of an ERP, which I get it. But what I'm trying to tell people is look, if you use it and you use it well, it'll give you time back to do the secret sauce, which your secret sauce should be your revenue generating activities, right? It's going to give you time back, and people get bad reps with ERPs. Sometimes it's a suck on time and you need to revisit that and get that fixed. So it's not, there's definitely cases where that's the truth. But it should be enhancing you, so that you have time to do what brings money into the door, right? That's the ultimate goal.
And I want to be mindful that we're not picking on any manufacturer or distributor at all. And quite honestly, we understand where you're coming from. What happens though is that often people get stuck in their own fishbowl, right? And they don't know how things operate outside of that fishbowl, right? And so part of this project, is really having somebody that's a visionary on the client side that's hey, we want to go to the next, this is for the next generation. And this is where we want to go. But it's not your fault. I also want to say that it's not your fault. It's just people are afraid of change. You are stuck inside your own business for 40, 50, 60 years, right? This is how you know it, how you do it. The process has evolved based upon somebody's original personality and the tools that were available, at the time. And, companies like Groove or Esonis are here to kind of help walk you through that, shepherd you through that process, and kind of get you to the other side of that.
Yeah, it's look, people, the apps are expensive, the consulting can get expensive, but the simple answer to that, my rebuttal to that part, why shouldn't we just do it? Or why shouldn't we just, pay the cheapest possible resource just to get it done? Well, when you hire a plumber or an HVAC guy, like we were talking about earlier, I hired a plumber to come put a toilet down. And there's two reasons I did that. Number one, I knew he was going to do it right. I think I'm fully capable of setting a toilet down and hooking it up. There's no doubt that I could do it. There's a higher chance that I probably do it wrong, right? And number two, I didn't have the time, nor did I want to take the time to put my own toilet down. And so you look at the value extracted from the services that companies like ours can provide. You're paying for those two things, time and expertise, right?
Yep. And also, Bo, putting in replacing a single toilet is also very different from plumbing an entire framed house.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
and so, we've got to think about that differently. So one of the things that I like to ask people is, if you had one growth tip for manufacturers or distributors or companies to help them grow in 2025, what would that be?
These days, I would say let's talk about pain people are probably having right now. You need to get the ability and the data so that you can have an outlook on your supply and demand plan. And the reason you should highly consider this right now is, impacts on tariffs, that audience is going to be highly prevalent for. So if you know your supply and your demand plan on stuff that you're going to be, potentially procuring from overseas, now you can start to build plans to adjust for whatever might happen. If it's not going to be a tariff impact, it's going to be something, right? Let's just assume tariffs or something else. You need to be dynamically working with that, and you need to be able to do it at pretty great speed. at that. So if you have those things available, if you have your product data, your costs, your countries of origin, your demand plans, and if you knew all that, and let's say the tariff bomb was dropped a month ago or whatever, you could have adjusted really quick, been like, well, look, this thing's going to go up in price to import, so let's just buy a shit ton of it right now. We've got cash on hand. Let's buy a freaking 5 containers full of these things. That is key to growth for these companies we're talking about, 20 to 500 million. Just the ability to do something like that will get you ahead, right? Because that could, on the flip side, that could be something that really hurts your growth. 20% increase in cost on something could just be killer. That could be so hard on your growth. So it's a general answer, but a real world answer at the same time. If you have the ability to do something like that, we're kind of managing economic change in real time. If you do that a year later, it's going to be too late. You're gonna feel the effects of something like that. It's going to hurt.
So, Colin, if people are frustrated with their NetSuite or they're looking to implement NetSuite, where can they find you?
LinkedIn is a great place. Colin Booth, you can find me on LinkedIn. The website has got a phone number. You can call it. I tell everyone I'll talk to you for 30 minutes. You can lay it out for me, and I'll tell you exactly what I would do. I'll give that away. I'm happy to tell you exactly what I do, or tell you you're crazy and I don't want any part of it. No, I mean, that probably won't happen. But you can find us at our website, esonus.com. Hit me up on LinkedIn.
Awesome. Well, it was great spending time with you today. I love the conversation. I think you and I are very aligned in how we are thinking about these things coming from different sides. It's kind of like the channel. We're kind of coming from, England and France and meeting in the middle between ERP and commerce platforms. And so I really appreciate your time, spending some time today with us. Please look for Colin on LinkedIn. And if you like what you see and you like what you hear, please give us a like, give us a subscribe on YouTube, leave a comment, shoot us a note. We will talk to you soon.
Awesome. Thank you.